I wouldn't be surprised if in 2023, the 2023 Big 12 champion, again, in the last season, Oklahoma and Texas are in the league. I wouldn't be surprised if neither of them are in the championship. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master of Football, back at it again. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on all things college football, pro football, Madden, EA, college football, NFL draft, anything related to any of that, hit that red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also, the like button too. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Do all of that. I really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, what is going on? Now, I know here is a big problem here, okay? NFL draft is done. Spring games are kind of wrapping up here. We have football nuclear winter. Here we are, we're at the beginning of May, and we won't really have a lot of news to work off of in pro, college, anything like that up until probably about mid-July. Now, again, there might be some things early July, there might be some mini camp stuff at the NFL, but for the most part, it's going to be a dead period. So what I want to do is discuss a couple things that are connected to the season, because there is one program, and I won't even say there's one program, there's multiple programs out there. The Wisconsins of the world, the NC States of the world, the Oregon States of the world, the Cincinnatis of the world, schools out there that don't get their credit for what they do, but really thoroughly fill out the roster of college football out there. One of them is Kansas State, who just re-signed their head coach. And again, for those casual college football fans, you'll be like, oh, TCU, they lost one game. Who did they lose to? They didn't even win their conference championship. That's because the Kansas State Wildcats did. Their head coach, Chris Klieman, he just signed a new $44 million deal through 2030 from Pete Thamel. Kansas State football head coach Chris Klieman are in the process of finalizing a new contract worth $44 million through the next 8 seasons, the sources told ESPN. Klieman will make an average of 5.5 per year over the course of the deal, which sources told ESPN extends through 2030 season. The deal, which goes into effect July 1 of this season, is expected to be completed and announced in the near future. And boy, did he deserve it. Your boys won championships at North Dakota State. He's won championships, a Big 12 championship here at Kansas State. He looks like he's on a good trajectory here. The deal comes in wake of Kansas State's Big 12 championship in 2022, the school's first since 2012. Kansas State finished last season 10-4, topped number 3 TCU in the Big 12 title game, and eventually fell to number 5 Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. A source with knowledge of the contract told ESPN that the length of the deal and bump in average pay are signs that the school's desire to keep Klieman at Kansas State for the long term. And again, I'll let anybody out there know, the most impactful coach in all of coaching, I would argue, is college football coach. You've got 85 guys on scholarship, you got development, you've got transfer portal, you got this, you got that. There's so many important things there that you can do. It's amazing. You literally change the head coach out, put a new head coach in, how much you can flip around your team. Kansas State notices this, and they're trying to make sure they keep Mr. Klieman here. Klieman's deal runs through 2030 season in 4 seasons longer than the current deal, which ends after the 2026 season. The average pay raise for Klieman will come out to nearly $1.5 million per year, as the deal being replaced averages nearly $4 million per year. It says his new contract will start in the 2023 season at $4.5 million per year and escalate from there, eventually averaging $5.5 million per year. Now think about this next line. This is really, really important when you start to think about, oh yeah, well, this is the reason why, college football is headed for 2 big conferences. The Power 5 should break away. He's expected, remember, the reigning Big 12 champion coach, he's expected to rank among the top half of coaching salaries in the Big 12. Just in the top half. The Big 12 now is going to be at 14 schools. They're going to eventually lose Kansas or Texas and Oklahoma, which should take out 2 of the top salaries there. But if you think about it right now, he's 7th, 6th, maybe 5th in conference in terms of the head coaching salaries. So money can't buy you everything. It can buy you a lot. But again, the most important team in the Big 12 this last season, I would say, is still TCU, but the champion was Kansas State. The 2022 season continued with steady build of the Kansas State program for Klieman, who enters his 5th year in 2023 with a strong team. Kansas State returns a majority of its starters on offense, including all 5 offensive linemen and 9 overall players expected to use their 6th year of eligibility. Kansas State should be projected to contend again for the Big 12 title. I'm actually going to go through an article here that highlights out, and again, this might sound controversial, but it's not that controversial when you really think about it. Again, there's a discrepancy in draft picks. between the SEC and everybody else. There's a discrepancy in salaries between and revenue between the SEC and everybody else. But I will say this again. I say that because Oklahoma and Texas are leaving for the SEC. People technically see them as kind of Big 12-ish, SEC-ish teams at this point. But when you think about it right here, I would not be surprised. Oklahoma and Texas, because of how good Kansas State is. We're going to talk about Kansas here in a second. There's a couple other schools there too. I wouldn't be surprised if in 2023, the 2023 Big 12 champion, again, in the last season, Oklahoma and Texas are in the league. I wouldn't be surprised if neither of them are in the championship. It says here the Klieman is 20-30 through 4 seasons at Kansas State, the most wins through 4 seasons for any coach in school history. And again, that's even including Bill Snyder. We're going to go over the history here because Bill Snyder had a slow build, but Chris Klieman a little bit faster than that. It says in every full season since Klieman took over, Kansas State has won at least 8 games. It went 4-6 during the 2020 shortened season by the pandemic. Klieman carried to Kansas State a track record for winning big. In his 5 seasons as the head coach of North Dakota State, he led the North Dakota State Bison to 4 FCS titles and a 69-6 record. He's tied with Jim Tressel, Youngstown State, for the most FCS national championships by a coach. Klieman was a part of 7 national titles while on the coaching staff at North Dakota State. In the same way that Lance Leipold was at Wisconsin Whitewater, I'm telling you right now, the X and O's of football, some things will change when you get up to the big versus the bottom, smaller schools here and there. But for the most part, if you know X's and O's of college, you can translate that across different leagues. Lance Leipold at Kansas, Chris Klieman at Kansas State. It says right here that Kansas State opens the 2023 season with home games against Southeastern Missouri and Troy before traveling to Missouri on September 16th. And again, if you look at the schedule, it kind of leans out pretty nice for them. And one of the things I want to make sure I talk about here is, again, I like that the mid-tier of college football really gives it what it's worth. Really it establishes, those are the games where, Michigan has to play at Iowa. They won big last season. However, a lot of times you go to Kinnick Stadium, it is not a good place for you. Florida State never wants to play at NC State. You guys go and play at Oregon State, places like that, Wisconsin, Camp Randall. There's a lot of those mid-tier programs that give the sport a good feeling and a good depth overall to where there's competition out there. And again, we know that Ohio State's always going to be good for the most part. Michigan's going to be good. They've actually just recently gotten good. They were actually pretty bad under, a couple of years ago there. But then you see, Florida State's solid. Florida won't ever be down for too long. Georgia's up right now. Alabama's good. Texas is a little overrated. I like what they do. They're a little overrated just because of how much football's king in Texas. USC is over there doing too. You see the fact that there's those big programs that are always going to be good, or it doesn't take very much to turn them around. Kansas State is one that you're definitely going to need some cultivation out there. You need to have a strong head coach, hence the reason why they gave out $44 million for your boy. And you see this last season. So this is the cool thing about college football here. So they lost to Tulane early on in the season. Everybody's like, oh man, they lost to Tulane. What an embarrassing loss. And then it turns out that actually wasn't that bad of a loss there. Come out here and beat Oklahoma, do pretty well here, lose to TCU at TCU, and then lose to Texas. So if you think about that, they eventually beat TCU. TCU beat Kansas State beat TCU. TCU beat Texas. Texas was very, very close to beating Alabama, and then Alabama beat Kansas State. The circle of life, man, just keeps going around and around and around. I'm telling you right now, again, the same thing I've said before. I had a video previously about the difference between, the top flight conferences and the middle flight conferences of the Power Five, and it shows up in revenue, and it shows up in, draft picks and things like that. But the middle and bottoms of the SEC and the Big Ten are just as bad, if not worse, than the middle and bottoms of the ACC, Big 12, and the Pac-12. And again, another thing about Kansas State is it's pretty much a kind of a new program here. You come down here and you check out what they've had before, and there's a lot. In 1970s, 1-10. What do we got? We got ourselves a 2-9. We got ourselves an 0-2. We got ourselves right here, and this is where it really culminated in the late 80s. Stan Parrish was 2 wins, 30 losses, and 1 tie. And then a guy by the name of Bill Snyder gets in there. Bill Snyder, 1-10, 5-6, 7-4, 9-5-6, and then 9 wins, 10 wins, 9 wins, 11, 6 wins, 11 wins, boom, 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 all that kind of stuff there. Eventually softened up here, and they had a couple years with Ron Prince. Well, Bill Snyder's like, I'm coming out of retirement. 10 wins, 11 wins, 8 wins, 9 wins, boom, 9 wins. And then we see Chris Klieman here, 8 wins, 4-6, and then 8-5, and then 10-4, and a championship in the Big 12. Again, I keep on saying it here. Okay, in the same way that Wisconsin, before Barry Alvarez, didn't have much of a history, same situation here with Kansas State. But again, you get a good coach in there, you're able to kind of keep things around and do really well. Chris Klieman should be just fine. Kansas State will probably be contending for the Big 12 title this next season. And I said this before, and this is the craziest thing you've ever seen. This is from the Oklahoman, and the Oklahoman said basically, if you look at the depth charts of the teams in the Big 12, right now, the top team is Kansas. So the Sunflower Showdown currently has one of the top teams, the conference returning champion, Kansas State, and then arguably the 1 and 2, maybe even 3 in terms of top ability at quarterback, one of the best starters and one of the best backups for sure in Jason Bean and the starter in Jalen Daniels. Man, I'm telling you right now, again, I think Texas and Oklahoma are going to be fine. I think Oklahoma is going to turn around pretty big, actually, in my perspective here. But I wouldn't be surprised if neither made the Big 12 championship game. That's how deep this league is. That's how good Kansas State is. That's how good the quarterback position is at Kansas. There's a lot more competition out there than you think. Now, the one thing I made a couple videos out there, and again, I talked about, LSU, dark horse for the Natty, Penn State, dark horse for the Natty, something like that. I don't necessarily think Kansas State is there just yet. I do like what they've done. They've done a lot of things here. And the schedule, lines up pretty good for them. Southeast Missouri State at home, Troy at home at Missouri. That'll be a little tough. UCF in their first, one of their first Big 12 games out there at Oklahoma State, at Texas Tech will be a tough 2 weeks there. Now, they do have a bye week before that game right there. And then they have host TCU. We're losing a lot of those guys there. Houston, first game in their first couple of games there in the Big 12 for them. At Texas will be tough. Baylor, and then at Kansas for the Sunflower Showdown, and then Iowa State at home. We'll see if Iowa State's turn around their offense. They had some issues last season. But that's not incredibly difficult of a schedule. I could see a 10-2 season. 9-3 is probably more likely 8-4 somewhere in there, but 10-2 is not unheard of. Kansas State, again, do I think they're going to win the Natty this next season? I don't know, but keep an eye on them, again, because from my perspective here, they're one of the teams out there that give college football its meaning and its depth and make it more interesting. So I keep on saying that. Again, Oregon State, NC State, Kansas State, Virginia Tech when they're good. I know they weren't very good the last couple seasons, but they fill out the middle of the roster there for the college football fans out there. And the big reason why I think that college football is cool, because it's like there's the big programs, there's the mid-tier programs. Kansas State's one of those mid-tier programs that can give a lot of trouble to those top-tier programs. And again, TCU was in the CFP last season. They weren't even the champion of their league because Kansas State was. Again, I'm telling you right now, as much as I think that we all know the SEC and the Big Ten, they get plenty of money, they got plenty of draft picks, this and that. However, I'm telling you right here, the second, third, fourth, fifth best teams in the ACC, Pac-12, and Big 12 can compete with the second best teams, third best teams, fourth best teams in the Big 12 or the Big 10 and the SEC. All right, guys, get in the comments right now. What do you think of those mid-tier programs? And again, name your favorite mid-tier program right now. And again, if you're a favorite fan of a mid-tier program, let me know. But again, I really like those mid-tiers. I like what they do. They can go 8-4, 9-3. Every once in a while, they can go 10-2. Sometimes maybe 11-1. But again, that's the reason why I love college football so much. It's because of programs like Kansas State and what they've done. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you guys later. I am out.